Hello, it's Domain Dave again from cheapwinefinder.com with a summer wine. It was 88 degrees in Chicago today and got me thinking about summer crisp wines on those hot days. You know, sometimes a big red wine doesn't seem all that pleasing. And what we have here is a very inexpensive wine. It's the Espiral Vinho Verde non-vintage wine from Trader Joe's, $4.45, which, you know, you wonder how they can make a wine and transport it all the way from Portugal to the middle of the United States for $4.45. But they can, and Vinho Verde is not it is a particular style of wine, but it's a region in northern Portugal. And they use the indigenous grapes to make this young, bright, acidic, clean, tasting wine. It can be red, it can be white, it's usually white, and it's adult lemonade. You know, it's that kind of wine that you put into one of those drink holders that keep everything cold. You don't need the fanciest glass for these wines. They have a little bit of carbonation to them. I was reading about them, and back in the day, the winemakers released them so quickly that the wine hadn't finished fermentation yet, and it would end the fermentation in the bottle, give it a little bit of bubbles, kind of sort of like champagne. Not all the way like that, but kind of sort of like that. Nowadays, they add the carbonation artificially. But this $4.45, the carbonation, it's not overdone. It's kind of balanced. The flavors are balanced. I'm going to take a sip. Yeah, it is adult lemonade. Not as tart as lemonade, but it has that feeling to it. It has that acidity to it. This is one of those wines that the colder, the better. I mean, don't let this warm up. You want it to be bracing and chilled. And like I said, put it in a Yehti cooler, one of those little handheld, to keep it warm or cool all day long. That would be perfect for this. 9% alcohol. It's low alcohol. It's one of those things that you can kind of graze on in an afternoon and, not be worse for wear. And that's pretty much it. It's a summer $4.45. It's like, how can this be a decent tasting wine for $4.45 that's been transported thousands of miles to get to you? Just took a second sip. It's not too sweet. It's remarkably balanced. It's a non-vintage wines, and these wines are the kind of wines that you're going to want to drink as soon as they're made. You don't want to go over a year with these things. You want them to be as bright and as alive as possible. And with the non-vintage wine, it's that could be a problem. You got to trust the store to keep the stock, updated, and that they're not putting the last year's bottles up front. Because you have no idea if you're grabbing last year's bottles or not. I mean, that's something you find occasionally in liquor stores and wine shops where you grab a bottle and it's 2 years old because they put it up front and you didn't notice it, and it's supposed to be young wine to get rid of, and oops, I made a mistake. You got to check. With non-vintage wine, you can't check. So, Vinho Verde Espiral, Trader Joe's, they've been making this wine for quite some time. If you go to a liquor store or a wine shop and buy a Vinho Verde, you can find them under $10 on a fairly rate, $7, $8, $9. And with Trader Joe's price advantages, where they don't advertise and their distribution costs are lower and all that type of thing, this kind of falls into the price range of those other wines. Plus, these wines are sold in Europe and in the United States. Trader Joe's is an Aldi in Europe, so they have they have a network that's way larger than most wine sellers, so they can do volume. It's one of those wines that once you start sipping it, you're going to keep on sipping it. Yeah, sitting by the pool in one of those insulated cooling cups with maybe a straw. This is not one of those wines where you got to keep up appearances. This is just being an adult. Rather than going to the kids' lemonade stand across the street, you grab your own bottle. It has a slight kick. It has a bit of bubbles to it, and it tastes pretty good. So that's it for me. Domain Dave, cheapwinefinder.com. The review is on the www.cheapwinefinder.com website. Like the podcast anywhere you see it on, if you will. Makes me happy. And I think we've got a couple of more summer wines coming up because, well, summer's coming up. So adios, keep it cheap, be cool, stay safe, and I'll be talking to everybody before too long, so bye-bye.